Congratulations, it's your first cruise ever. You've literally never been on a cruise ship before, no problem. That's what today's video is all about. You've seen us go on many cruises. We've tried a couple different lines. Today I want to give you some really basic tips. If you've never cruised before, maybe you've cruised like 20, 30 years ago and you're like, all right, I gotta get back to cruising now. This is your video where we can kind of go over some of the things that you're definitely gonna not want to forget. Everything from flights to packing to things on board, things not to forget on board a cruise. Let's dive into it. Let's start first with those flights. If you are flying to a cruise destination, a lot of people are gonna tell you right off the bat, you're gonna wanna get there the day before. And it's very tempting to not want to get there the day before, stay in a hotel, and then get a taxi or Uber or whatever it is to the port. I totally get it. I have tried it before. I've tried kind of both of those strategies before, going in advance the day before and going day of. And I can tell you right now, going the day before is going to save you stress, aggravation, and any headaches that might happen along the way. If you've been on a plane in recent days, you know that usually the flights go off just as scheduled and they get there when they're supposed to get there. But every so often, something happens where either the flight doesn't go at all or there's a very significant delay. I can tell you right now from experience that if you're about to go on a trip and you wake up in the morning and you open your emails or text messages and you find that the airline said, hey, sorry, that flight's not going. We're going to take you the next day at 5 a.m. Not going to work for me, so let's correct that, shall we? It's something that's happened to many of us who have flown before. It's not fun, and if it's happening right before your cruise, it's extra not fun because if you booked a flight that'll take you to, let's pretend you're going to Orlando International Airport and it's supposed to land, let's pretend it's at 11, right? You're landing at 11, you're leaving early, and the flight's delayed. It's not going to land until, let's say, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. That is extremely close. That probably will not get you to the ship in time. That's how small of a window you're working with if you're trying to book a flight same day to get to a cruise. It's a little extra money, but having that peace of mind and booking a hotel, maybe at the airport or very close to the airport or even close to the port, the day before, getting that flight the day before, it's just less stress, less to worry about. You can start your vacation off on the right foot. Now, I know that there are some people who can do this and some who simply say, Michael, I can't. I wish I could take that extra day. I can't do it. What are your suggestions there? I would get the earliest flight possible. So if you're saying it's the difference between leaving at 6 a.m. and getting there at like, I don't know, 11, let's pretend you're coming from a little further, or leaving at like 8 a.m. and getting there at, let's just say 12:30, just giving you examples, earlier. Just leave that extra time. Just make it earlier. Whatever you can do to get it earlier in the day, you're gonna be happy if you cannot stay that night before. Next up, and this is really important, the cruise documents. You are either gonna need a passport or birth certificate and photo ID or something else. So you definitely wanna check the documentation for your cruise. It depends where you're going, which line you're taking. There are so many variables. If you have a passport, you're gonna be better off overall. If you can get a passport, I recommend getting one because it just makes the whole process that much simpler. I remember I got off Independence of the Seas, Royal Caribbean, and I went through and I showed my passport. It was like 10 seconds. It was easier than anything I've ever done when it comes to getting back into the States. The people with birth certificates and photo IDs had to go in this line, and the line looked like it could take 30 minutes, easy. So the convenience of having a passport, and just in case anything happens overseas, let's pretend the ship just doesn't make it where it's supposed to go. I'm thinking of ships that recently had this problem. You're gonna want your passport to make it as easy as possible to get back home to where you need to be. So if you have a passport or can get a passport, definitely use it. If you have an option on your cruise, let's say it's a little Bahamian cruise, and they say, oh, you can bring your birth certificate and photo ID or passport, and you have a passport, go the passport route every single time. So definitely double check all the documents you need, whether it be passport, photo ID, whatever it is, you're gonna wanna make sure you've got every single document. Sometimes you need the original of some of these documents, right? So some people have passport cards instead of the whole passport. Double check that you're allowed to use that instead of your real passport. A lot of little details like that. The cruise website, the cruise you're going on, will have those details. Now, in terms of getting to the port, let's pretend you're coming in from an airport. You can get what's called a cruise transfer. Think of it like a sea and transportation package where it brings you from the airport to the port, kind of included, big bus. Do I recommend this? It kind of depends on the cruise that you're going on. If you are going on a Disney cruise or Royal Caribbean cruise from Orlando, it's very well known, you know, they have cruises there all the time. It's not gonna be a problem. You can go with the transfer or without. Either way, you're gonna be fine. I've never had a problem both. I've done both and it's never been an issue either way. If you're going out of a place that doesn't usually have cruise ships coming in and out, I'm thinking of areas like well, Alaska's common, but let's pretend it's the beginning of the season. You may want to try going for that transfer. There's some that go to Maine, for example. Not always cruise ships are going there, so you may want to try getting the transfer there. If not, you'll be able to get an Uber or taxi, no problem. If you're coming from overseas, you will be able to find a taxi or an Uber almost no problem at all. Getting the transfer may give you a little bit more peace of mind, especially if it's your first one. That way you know the cruise ship is taking care of the whole thing, but by no means is it a requirement or highly, highly recommended. It's a nice option if you want it, usually a bit more expensive. Now let's talk about packing, and I've made in-depth packing lists before about cruising. I kind of want to go over some of the key things, just really not to forget. First and foremost, you're going to want to have some kind of carry-on to bring with you. So that includes your important documents that you're going to need, perhaps a change of clothes. I recommend a swimsuit. We're going to get back to that in a minute. And some other things that you're going to need on that first day. Let's pretend your luggage is delayed. Let's pretend it's even delayed till, I'm not going to say the next morning, but very, very late, even after dinner, right? This has happened rarely, not commonly, but rarely it does happen. And you need to make sure you have at least a couple things to kind of get you through until your luggage arrives at your stateroom. More often than not, your luggage is actually there before you get to the stateroom, so don't worry about it, but just have that carry-on with a few things that you're gonna need in there. A good example, medication. If you take medication, have it in your carry-on bag. Do not pack it in your luggage. I mean, you could pack some extras in your luggage, but things you're gonna need for the first 48 hours, that's got to be in your carry-on bag, no question. When it comes to other things to bring on board that cruise, it depends on the itinerary. If you're taking an Alaskan cruise, you're probably not going to need that swimsuit that much. That being said, you may want one. You never know if it's a special Alaskan cruise. They may have like an enclosed area where you can go. I'm thinking of some of the other lines that I'm looking at. Enclosed area where you can go and the pool's not heated, but it's at least indoors. But you're probably not going to need like 4 pairs of swimsuits, right? If you go to the Caribbean, you may want several different pairs of swimsuits. In addition, you are going to want something formal-ish for some of those nights where you are at dinner and you're enjoying some great food. You're going to want something to dress up just a little bit. Could just be a collared shirt for men, could be a dress for women. It could depend. It depends on what you feel comfortable in, but just know that other guests are going to be a little bit more dressed up, just a little bit more when they go to dinner. So wearing a tank top and shorts to dinner is usually frowned upon. So something a little bit more than that. Usually the cruise line will actually tell you what the dress code is, or at least the suggested dress code. Especially if you look on their website, you actually look at it yourself, they will 100% tell you what the dress code is. Most cruise lines also have a formal night and sometimes a themed night. I'm thinking of the Disney Cruise Line, where you will definitely want your own pirate attire, or if you're on a Marvel day at Sea Cruise, one of my favorites, you're gonna want Marvel attire, things like that. That'll definitely enhance it for you. Now, the items that you should not bring with you, that list is equally extensive, and it depends actually on the cruise line you're on. For example, if you want to bring a drone, and I love flying my drone, if you want to bring it with you, you literally cannot on a Disney cruise. No, you can't have it at all. On Royal Caribbean, you can bring it and then fly it depending on the safety regulations in the country that you're visiting, and you can fly it right there. I mean, if you can, if you're allowed to, look up the legality of flying your drone in a different country. That is very important, all right? I'm just putting it out there. But the list is very extensive and depends on the cruise that you're on. I would look at the list. It's on their website. Super easy to know. A couple things like ham radios, you can't bring those. Weapons of any kind, you can't bring those, just as an example. Something you definitely don't want to forget, chargers for your devices. That includes phones and even like an Apple Watch, right? You want your Apple Watch charger with you so you can continue to charge it up when you're out and about, just as an example. In addition, if it is permitted, and this is a big if because many cruise lines don't allow it, some do, is to bring some kind of splitter so you can charge multiple devices from one port in the electrical port. That being said, many cruise lines don't allow that, and if they do, it's like 1 or 2 extra, not like 6. You can't bring one of those big, what do you call it? The thing where you plug in a lot of different things into it. One of those surge protectors, you can't use those usually on cruise ships. So there are some that are actually allowed for cruise ships, like ones that take USB, a couple of those are allowed, but some are definitely not. It is actually really important because many of the cruise ships that I've been on only have maybe like 2 electrical outlets per room, and I like to charge up my GoPro and my Apple Watch and my phone and maybe my brother's phone and his camera and GoPro. And there's a lot of electrical things to plug in. So for us, we do have an allowable splitter, but it has to be the USB one, and it can only be like 1 or 2. They're very strict on this, so it's something to look into for each cruise line. In addition, if you're trying a cruise line that is overseas, for example, there's a couple that I know of at MSC, you need to have a special converter. If you're coming from the United States, you need to convert your electrical devices into the one that will fit in the MSC cruise, just as an example. So you're just gonna wanna look into that that in advance. Sometimes they don't actually tell you on the website. You got to do a little bit more digging to figure it out. But if you have any questions about it, they're super inexpensive, especially like on Amazon. You can just buy them and it just converts into the European version. It's like there's a pack where they have like every type of plug imaginable that you can just plug into your device. It's really like the extra precaution to make sure just in case. That being said, be sure you're not plugging into a hairdryer outlet. I haven't done that, but I've heard of someone who did that and it wasn't good. So the hairdryer outlet is just meant for the hairdryer. Now in terms of excursions, this is a great question. Should you book them? The answer, my answer, absolutely. 100% I recommend it. If it's your very first cruise, I would recommend booking it through the ship. It's that extra convenience, the extra reassurance. You don't have to worry about stuff. I would book it through the ship the first time. It'll give you that extra level of comfort, and then you learn more about where you're going, different destinations, and then you can book it on your own in the future. No question. It is, your own risk to do that. You want to do your research, make sure the excursion that you're getting is one that has been done by many, and it's not the very first one for this company, just as an example. So just things to look for. But if it's your first cruise, I do recommend excursions, and I do recommend them through the cruise line. The biggest reason for that is if there's any delay, let's pretend that little ferry that brought me back from Virgin Gorda was delayed, the ship would know and wouldn't leave without me. I mean, if it was like 4 hours late, they'd find a way to get me back, but they're in charge of that, right? The ship has to take care of all of that, right? I don't have to worry about it. Ship knows where I am. They know what I'm doing. Don't have to worry. And that level of not worrying, it to me is worth the extra cost, especially if it's your first cruise. Now, depending on the cruise you're going on, especially if it's your first cruise, Disney included here, you want to make sure you have a lanyard or some way of carrying around your cruise card, your Key to the World card, or whatever you want to call it, around the ship. Now, Princess Cruise Line uses a special magic band type thing that you can either purchase or you get it included, depending on a lot of things, but some way of having your card with you. If they don't include a lanyard, which many of them do not, especially for that first cruise, you're going to want to have it with you. You can purchase them online, very inexpensive prior to your cruise. If you buy them on board, they are going to be more, right? They're nice on board, they are. But it's just something that you're gonna kind of save money on if you buy it in advance of the cruise. Somewhere to carry that card around that's just easy access for you. Otherwise, it's gonna be in your wallet or you're gonna have to buy something. Now, when you first step on board, get acquainted with your brand new home for the next however many days your cruise is. It's great to kind of just walk around, get a little mini tour. You don't have to get the full tour right away. Just a mini tour, get yourself a little oriented, explore just for maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just to kind of get used to the ship. And then depending on when you're getting on board, I would go right to that safety drill, the muster drill that every cruise ship has to go through. You got to go through it. Disney Cruise right now is making it really easy. You can just kind of use your phone and check in and you're set to go. It's super convenient. And many of their cruise lines are following suit where you can do the safety drill in advance and then just kind of check in at the location and you're done. Just knock that out first thing when you arrive at the earliest you can. Then you get the whole rest of that day to not have to worry about that. Now, if you took my advice earlier with the packing list and you packed a bathing suit in that carry-on, you're going to be happy that you have it because usually, depending on the cruise line you're on, depending on the itinerary, there are a lot of variables here. Usually you don't get your luggage and the stateroom's not available when you first step on board. Usually it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock when the stateroom's available, and maybe you're stepping on board at, let's pretend it's 12, right? So you got a couple hours where you can get some food, that's great, or you can hop right in the pool, especially if you have your bathing suit with you in that carry-on bag. If you brought it with you and it's in your carry-on bag, you can go to the public restroom area, change, and then hop right in the pool, and your vacation is started off with a splash. Get it? Yeah, you get it. But that's the idea of bringing your bathing suit with you. I've done it multiple times. It's great. A couple friends have asked me, Michael, what about the sailing away? Do you really recommend seeing it? On a Disney cruise, yes. For your first cruise, Disney cruise, you want to see that with the characters sailing away and 3, 2, 1, and it's all exciting and they blow the horn. It's great. But if it's a non-Disney cruise, I just recommend watching the port as it fades into the distance there and you sail away from it for that first cruise. I still remember that moment. I was on, I think I was on deck 4 outside on the Disney Dream, and I just watched as the port kind of went away and we were at sea. It was an unreal feeling, and it's something that you'll hold on to. Just look out there, just get a outside somewhere, veranda or just on one of the upper decks, and just watch the sea go by. It's amazing. Now, in terms of communication, this is something that a lot of cruise lines really differ on. Royal Caribbean, for example, you have to pay for the service so that everybody can kind of text using their service on board. Disney includes texting for those on the ship and off the ship. Really an amazing feature. And other cruise lines do different things, depending. It's on the app. Some of them have the Wi-Fi included. A lot of different options options for communication. This is something to research in advance. If you don't have any communication options on board, think about walkie-talkies. That being said, I've talked about walkie-talkies before. They're great, I mean amazing for shore excursions. I mean, that's perfect. They're literally meant for shore excursions. That being said, when you're on board a ship, the steel throughout the ship is going to block that signal quite a bit. So you got to be either outside or kind of in a very open area in order to communicate with the walkie-talkies if you're on board. So it's just something to think about in advance. How are you going to communicate on board when you separate? Some cruise lines still use the sea phones as an example. You can kind of call each other using these phones they provide you, but many cruise lines are kind of taking a different direction now. So something to research in advance, depending on the cruise line. Now let's talk about spending on board, because I know this is a topic that comes up quite a bit. Paying the tips in advance, that's totally on you. Usually I do, and then I just add more, you know, later on if I feel like they did above and beyond work. With Disney Cruise, they almost always do. Royal Caribbean was great too. In addition, the drink package, other things that cost money, those are things that are really worth researching on many of these cruise lines. Royal Caribbean, for example, has a certain drink package, and then Celebrity has a different one, and then I found out that Princess has something totally different. And sometimes drinks that you think would be included if you've been on a Disney cruise aren't included on the other ships, right? So drink packages really do vary and depend on your personal preference and your taste. For me, I haven't needed one. I don't drink much. And for me, the tea and water that they have on board the Royal Caribbean ship worked for me perfectly, and lemonade. It was great. So that's just an example of knowing myself. Like, do that research, make sure that the cruise that you are on offers the things that you want, or think about purchasing that drink package either in advance or once you get there. Usually they have some special deal going when you first step on board for the drink packages, so something to look into. Photos on board are a ton of fun, especially the special photos that the different cruise lines take. Different cruise lines offer a different level of photos. For example, on the Disney Cruise Line, they are really dedicated to those photos, right? They have a ton of photographers, great backgrounds. If you're looking for the photo package, Disney, it is worth it, but right now the prices have gone up so much, I might just kind of buy one or two of them at the kiosk. You know, I'm a huge fan of those photographers. They do a great job capturing those memories, but somehow I feel like right now it's a little bit pricey, especially to get all the digital photos. And when you're on board, especially your first cruise, and you have the all digital photo package, this has happened to me, you feel like you have to get all of these pictures, just non-stop pictures all the time. You can't really relax as much, especially on that first cruise. So I would actually hold off on buying all the photos. Maybe take a couple here and there, and then purchase one or two that you really like at the end of your cruise. That's the way that I would go with photos. Now on the Royal Caribbean cruise ship, I felt like it was the same way, but they didn't have as many photo ops. At least not as many as that I was seeing. So something else to think about. Disney, I feel like they've got so many more photo options available to you. Now, if you've never been on board a ship before, you may be saying to yourself, all right, Michael, I'm thinking about seasickness. I saw your video about seasickness. I've seen others of getting seasick. What do I do about this? Well, good question. There are tons of things that you can get, whether it be a patch behind your ear, something that you can take via your mouth, or special glasses that you can wear with like water in the sides. There's all sorts of tricks that you can use for seasickness depending on your level. I have a friend who felt seasick on, I think it was like Pirates. I think she got almost seasick on Pirates at Disneyland. So if you're that level, you want to get that patch before you step on board this ship, right? You want to have it in advance in your system. If you're more like me, where only very extreme, like I'm going to say 7, 8, 9 foot swells are going to get me, I know that that's coming. The captain can usually alert you to it and usually gives you a little feedback. It's like, oh, we're gonna get rougher seas. He says that, go ahead and grab one of those non-drowsy Dramamine that I highly recommend in advance of your cruise. When you buy them on board, they're a bit more expensive, especially the non-drowsy one. I didn't see one of those on board the Disney ship I was on, but I like the non-drowsy herbal ones that you can buy online or probably any drugstore. You buy those in advance, you have them with you just in case, doesn't hurt. So I think that having that knowledge in advance, getting these things in advance, are going to make you feel more comfortable as well. And taking them, especially the non-drowsy, I keep saying that because, you know, non-drowsy on board, it's going to help a lot. Now in terms of dining preferences, and this is done before you get on board, and sometimes you can switch it when you're on board, but usually it's done well in advance because they sell out. You want early dining if you are a first-time cruiser. This is because you'll get it right around when you normally eat, you'll be able to go to sleep on a regular time, you're set to go. If you prefer eating later, don't really want to be around as many loud kids, and I totally get that, and kind of just want to take it at a slower pace and wake up later in the morning, then maybe late dining's right for you. There's no bad option here. It's just if it's your first Disney cruise and you're looking for my advice, I recommend main dining, just because I feel like it's keeping you on your regular schedule if you're used to waking up earlier in the morning. That's just me. I prefer main dining, but I've tried both, and there are definitely advantages to both. When the cruise comes to an end, and nobody wants it to end, trust me, you are not alone there. When it comes to an end, and you're ready to start making your way off, keep in mind that very last day they're going to charge your credit card however much money was on your account at the end of your cruise. So you can keep track of that cruise portfolio as you're on board. I had the ability on Royal and the ability on Disney. I would keep track of it, by the way. I was on a Royal Caribbean Independence of the Seas ship. Someone accidentally gave my room number for an alcoholic beverage that they got. I didn't get it. They were able to confirm all this. I don't know, they used cameras, they used something to confirm that it was not me who ordered that drink, so they took it off my bill and charged it to the correct room. No problem. But just keep an eye on it, just to make sure that no one accidentally does something that was wrong. It was an accident. It happens. They did it, no problem. But they did this in advance of the end of the cruise. The reason for that is because after the cruise is over, they've already charged it, and then they got to worry about getting the charge back and all that. So watch it maybe just prior to that last night or 2 nights before the last night. Just double check, make sure everything looks good, then you'll be charged at the end of the cruise with your card on file. On that very last day, I do recommend, if it's an option available to you, using the easy access. Everybody's got a different name for it, but the easy access of getting off the ship. What this means is that you pack your bag at by 10 p.m. the night prior to departure and put it outside your room, or give it to your stateroom host or hostess, and they will take it to meet you at customs area, right? That you'll meet your luggage down there after the cruise is over. That being said, that means you have one more night and one more morning where you have to have clothes and everything you need in your carry-on bag. This is where the carry-on bag is so important, because you want to be able to put your pajamas that you wore that night into the carry-on bag and have clothes available to put on that morning. It's not, I heard a story of guests who had to leave the ship in their pajamas, okay? So this is a real thing. Make sure you have clothes at the end of the cruise, right? So if your bag goes down, they're not gonna be able to get it back for you that next morning. So have everything you need for the next morning so that you can eat breakfast, enjoy it, make your way off the ship, and then meet your luggage right by customs. So I do recommend using that service if it's available to you. If not, you will have to roll your luggage around the ship until you make your way off. It's not too bad. I've done it before. I've done both. But if you have that early access opportunity, I would take it. Those are a few of the big things that you do not want to forget on your very first cruise, or first cruise in a long, long time. If you have additional tips that you want to add to this list that I've laid out for you, please let us know in the comments below. Something that you definitely would have forgotten on your first time that you want to make sure nobody else forgets on their first time. Let us know in the comments below. Love to hear from you. Thanks so much for being a part of the magic with me today, and a special thanks to our patrons for making it all possible. Until next time, have a magical day and see you real soon.